Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Billy Butler. I'm a local real estate investor and property manager with over 30 full-time vacation rental properties under management through my company, Sweet Capacity. If you're interested in learning more, drop me a like or give me a follow, or you could look us up at sweetcapacity.com, and that's sweet spelled like hotel suite, S-U-I-T-E. So we specialize in making short-term rentals completely passive and hands-off for all the owners, so that if you're an owner with us, all you got to do is sit back, enjoy the property when you want, and cash the checks, and that's it. We handle all the guesswork and everything in between so that it's passive income for the owners. So today I want to discuss, how do you actually properly price your property, your listing here on the Jersey Shore? So there's a few rules of thumb that I've used in the past that actually help me get to a proper pricing strategy for all of our listings. And now we manage properties that are studio apartments all the way up to 6-7 bedroom mansions on the beach with a pool, etc. So how do we price these properties competitively and correctly, right? How do you make sure that you're getting the right amount of yield on that property? And how do you make sure that not only the owner is happy, but that the guests are happy with paying that price? So how do we justify that? How do we price our properties? Let's get into it right now. We begin with seasonality. So first and foremost, we understand that the Jersey Shore is really only going to be active May through September. So those 5 months out of the year, we call it our peak season. The rest of the year is really the off season. It's going to be more difficult to get bookings, and you need to be more flexible, strategic, and lower your prices significantly in order to get booked at all in the off season. But let's just talk peak season right now. So peak season, May through September, how do we price our property appropriately? So we're going to begin with what I call the base rate assumption. The base rate assumption here on the Jersey Shore, at least in my opinion, and this is traditionally kind of how people have priced the properties in the past, is you want to go about $1,000 a week for each bedroom you have. So a 2-bedroom with 1 bath, or a 3-bedroom with 1 bath, doesn't really matter how many bathrooms. If you have a 2-bedroom, it would be $2,000 a week at the base. And if you have a 3-bedroom, it would be $3,000 a week at the base. 4-bedroom would be $4,000, 5 is $5,000. So you kind of get where I'm going with that, right? So $1,000 a week per bedroom is the base case that you want to get for your property. So we divide that out by 7 nights and we get our nightly rate. So if you have a property that is a 7-bedroom property, you could easily get $1,000 a night. So how do we now reverse engineer that for various amenities, for competition in the area? So here's the next step. After you've considered seasonality and your base rate, you now want to apply that base rate to each week in between May 1st all the way to September 30th. What you want to do now is pick out the holidays. So we have Memorial Day to start the summer. We have 4th of July in the middle of the summer, and then we have Labor Day at the end of summer. Now that you have these 3 holidays, go ahead and raise your prices at least by a factor of 2. So double the prices for those 3 different holidays. So now that we've factored in the holidays of the summer, we want to now factor in the true peak season, which is going to be Memorial Day through Labor Day, which is always a 14-week stretch of time. So for that 14-week period, you want to keep your rates elevated above the base level. So you want to now go ahead and divide it out by the 7 nights, and you want to make your weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, you want to make those nights obviously much higher, and you want to make Monday through Thursday much lower in order to incentivize people to book the midweek and the weekends simultaneously or separately. Because a lot of times what we'll see nowadays is people only want to stay for 3 or 4 nights. So how do you incentivize them to book the midweek? Because if people are staying for only 3 nights or 4 nights on average, what that means is your weekends are all going to get booked out first. if you have a 3-night minimum. So with a 3-night minimum, boom, 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 all your weekends get taken up right away. Now what you have to do is discount the midweek in order to incentivize people to book those midweek timeframes, which you can still do. So now that you have your weekend pricing, now create your midweek discount. Then what you also want to do is create a rule set within Airbnb or Vrbo or whatever OTA you're using. Create a rule set that says if someone books for 7 nights or more, they get some sort of a discount,
Wow.
5%, 10%, something like that, to actually incentivize a full week. Because you do actually want people to stay longer, because it turns your property over less and you have less work to do if there's less turnovers. However, if you do book somebody for 3 nights for the weekend and then maybe 4 nights for the midweek, you'll actually be earning more money because you'll be able to set your prices higher for the weekend and then a little bit lower for the midweek, but the average of the two should be higher than your base rate per week for the, based on the amount of bedrooms you have. And now we move on to the final piece of the puzzle, which is additional amenities. So if your property is special in a sense that you offer free parking, or you have parking for multiple vehicles, or you have an outdoor shower, you have a jacuzzi outside, you have a cold plunge, or you offer bikes or kayaks, or maybe your property is right against the water, or maybe you have a pool, you have a washer dryer, etc. All of these additional amenities that people can use during their stay will incrementally increase the booking value or the rental value of that property. So if you have just a condo with not really any amenities, no washer dryer, just one parking spot, something like that, then you're going to be much closer to what the base level should be. But let's say you have a 4-bedroom house that has an elevator and a pool and a jacuzzi. Well, now you can actually probably increase by approximately 30 to 40% what your base rate is for peak season, because you have amenities that people want to use. So those are all things to consider. Washer dryer is also another thing to consider. A lot of properties here at the shore, I'd say it's probably 50-50, but you get a lot of properties where they don't have a washer dryer in unit. So if you do have a washer dryer in unit, then that's a big bonus. Another big bonus around here is pet friendliness. Most of the properties around here in the Seaside Heights area are not pet friendly. So if you have a pet friendly property, like we have a couple, we've noticed that they tend to get booked first. A lot of people want to bring their pets down to the shore over the summer, especially if they're going to be staying for a week or maybe more than a week. So having a pet friendly property and various amenities within the property that are for the pet, like, you've got a dog bed, or you've got, the water bowls and stuff like that, right? All those things are bonuses that you can now increase the nightly rate. So even having a pet friendly property, you can initially have a higher rate. And then as people book your summer, you can kind of lower it as it gets closer to the dates if those dates are unbooked. So it does give you more optionality. So the more amenities and the more additional things you can provide to the guests, the higher you can go from your base rate. And typically my suggestion to everybody, if they're not using a dynamic pricing algorithm like Price Labs or something of the matter, right? If you're not using anything like that and you're doing it all manually, what I would suggest to do is start out at a higher rate for the summer. So right now, if we're talking in January about the summer prices in July, you want to have a higher rate, because if people book further out in advance, they'll be paying a little bit more versus if they come and book last minute. Because once the dates start to come closer, within 60 days, within 30 days, then we want to start kind of pulling back on the pricing and, just trying to fill out those remaining dates that you have unbooked. So that's my final recommendation there for pricing. So if you have any questions about how to properly price your property, or if you want to know how you can get a competitive edge against some of the competition in the area, because we didn't even get to talk about comparables yet. How do you compare against other people that are competing with you in the area? We have a dynamic pricing tool for that. But if you have questions for me, drop me a message, drop me a comment below, and I'd be happy to talk to you, and you can reach out to me directly. You can reach me at our office number, which is 732-440-5222. Thanks for watching.